What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. My name is Filip, and today we're going to be comparing and contrasting two particular Nike shoes, the Nike Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit and the Nike Pegasus 37. With the announcement of the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit 2, just kind of around the corner for us here now, I just want to continue putting this shoe back into my running lineup. And just basically giving my final thoughts about it before I officially retire it. I think the shoe has about 200 plus miles. And of course, the Peg 37, just my thoughts on it as we move on into the 2021 race year, as we're kind of just pushing along that way. So first things first, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below how many phone numbers and girlfriends you got with either the Peg 37 or Infinity. You know what, let's, we'll get back to that. Comment down below your experience with these shoes. Whether you like them, hate them, if you agree with my assessment, disagree, you know, just hold on to that thought. And of course, if you are a continued subscriber to the channel and you continue watching the content, thank you for your support. Love you guys very much. And it's my pleasure to make videos like this and of course new and improved bombshell crazy content moving into the 2021 running and race seasons. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first things first, let's discuss the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit. So this was pretty much the shoe that came out earlier in the 2020 racing year. This one's probably in the top 3. Okay, so the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit. This is probably one of the top 3 most popular Nike trainers in the 2020 season. Up there with the Peg 37, I'd say the Peg Turbo 2, as it has its resurgence, and the Tempo Next Percent somewhere in that mix. I guess out of those 4 shoes, we'll decide the top 3. But anyways, let's talk specs about this shoe, and then I'll talk about my experience with it and where, you know, things kind of fit with it. So first and foremost, the shoe in size 10 is about 9.8 ounces. Which puts it at about like 275, 278 grams on average. This is about an 8.5, so it's going to be slightly less than that. I think this is about 9.7, 9.6 ounces overall, putting it on a more heavier end of your running scale shoes, or in this case, the average everyday Nike trainer weight that isn't a Peg Turbo. Other things we can discuss about it, of course, the heel drop offset is about 8 millimeters. With the heel stack height being what looks like a 30 millimeter heel stack height, making the front toe area being about 22 millimeters. So it's a high ride, but that's probably the magic of this particular shoe in regards to its purpose in your running lineup. So before we discuss that, let's get into the bottoms, midsole, and all that. So of course, as the name suggests, the Nike Infinity React.
It's ZoomX foam.
I'm kidding, it's not. It's React foam that goes across the shoe that makes what I've historically labeled as a Swiss cheese spaceship design that I'm a very big fan of. And yeah, basically, the Infinity React foam is very durable, very comfortable. It has been marketed as a shoe more for your everyday / recovery runs. And it's built in a way that's supposed to prevent injuries, whatever that means. But that being said, the React is probably the foam that's been best designed for this particular thing because of how much it mitigates and minimizes impact as you hit the ground while you're running in this particular shoe. So it's very cool like that. Of course, back to the midsole, the bottoms of the shoe in particular have this cool rubber design that I've basically shredded a lot of off here on the outsole of the shoe. You can't really diss this design. I think it's really cool. I think it was really fun especially for road running. Trail running, I haven't really tried it all too much on the trails, like gravel, loose gravel, and like heavy rocks and things like that. But I would assume you can probably get away with some trail runs. I don't think it's intended for trail runs, however, in terms of grip. But I think with how much React foam there is, it's probably more forgiving from running and like hitting sharp rocks or something like that. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. The upper, this is where the points of contention kind of come in with the shoe. Of course, it is Flyknit, as the name suggests, and as it's labeled here on the shoelace tops here. It's running Infinity React. It's got a lot of reinforcement here in the heel with this like tough rubber / plastic piece on the heel area of the shoe, probably as a support system for the shoe overall. The shoe collar is very open, very loose, as most Flyknit collars seem to be. But this one in particular is like a lot lower, and this is where I've talked about it many months ago, that when you take really hard turns in this shoe, it does feel like your foot's gonna fly out of it, and it is due to the fact that this collar is just so low. And I hope in the Infinity React 2 they fix this issue or have some kind of other shoelace mechanism that can assist. Speaking of shoelaces, the shoelace design is not asymmetrical as the most Nike shoes have been recently, at least not heavily. It is still pretty centered, but the big point of contention here is the fact that with these shoelaces being as long as they are, there isn't really a place to tuck them in when you're running in the middle of your runs, because this collar is so narrow and so low. Typically when I would run, I would tuck them in, basically push them off to like one side and tuck them into the side, and that's how I would be able to get away with running these particular shoes. However, because this shoe collar is just so minimal, sometimes the shoelaces just fly out and they just bounce around on top of the shoe, and it's not bad if you tie your shoes correctly, but it is very annoying. Basically, as you're going along on either a slower, longer run, or you're just trying to put in some speed and whatnot, and it's just, you know, that's kind of the vibe with it. So that's kind of all I got to say with the Infinity React Run Flyknit as of right now. Let's talk about the Peg 37. I bring out both of these Peg 37s because if you've watched historic renditions of my Peg 37 reviews, you know I have some very contrasting opinions about both of these Peg 37s. Let's start with the one, the City Run edition, which is one of the first Peg 37s that came out, also in the late spring, early summer season. So, mind the dirt, I was walking around this shoe for a little bit, but whatever. Let's talk specs. So, in about size 10, this shoe is about 10 ounces, which is about 280 grams. Very similar to the Infinity React Run Flyknit, if not slightly heavier. Of course, this is in size 8.5, so that's going to be slightly less, maybe like 9.8, 9.9 ounces. You get the idea there, right? The heel stack height is basically about 24 millimeters, which is slightly less than the Infinity React Run Flyknit. And then the stack height offset is about 10 millimeters, which gives it that slight raise. Also slightly different from the Infinity React Run Flyknit. Making it a more interesting, more mid-foot, forefoot striking worthy ride of a shoe, I would say. Or at least that's just my hot take on it. Let's talk about midsole and bottoms. Again, React foam running all the way across the shoe. Very comfortable, very fast. Well, the foam itself is not extremely fast. The caveat here is what's in the bottom of the shoes, which is, of course, this air pocket that apparently is known in most of the Pegasus lineup shoes for having just that extra compression-decompression spring, more or less in this midfoot, forefoot area of the shoe, and it's supposed to give you just an extra snap in your step while you're running, which I fully agree with. As you can tell, I've put in over 400 plus miles in this shoe and have loved every step in this particular pair of the City Run Pegasus 37 with this particular rubber and all that. So speaking of rubbers, this is, of course, the insole rubber setup is this kind of gooey rubber, I believe, because there's two different kinds, and that's going to be one of our points of contention in this particular video, is that this gooey rubber, in addition to this air pocket, have been in tandem one of the best everyday training setups I've ever had with a running, with at least an everyday running shoe that doesn't have a carbon plate. And that's why I love this Pegasus 37 as much as I do, and as much as I have in the past and during my summer training season. So that's kind of the bottoms as far as we can go here. Let's talk about uppers. So it is not a Flyknit upper. It is more of like this kind of translucent, tougher mesh upper, which is supposed to be more or less very firm, very snug in the middle of your runs. Basically the regular Pegasus kind of design with this signature lip of the shoe and this shoe collar, which just has this like tip here at the end, which is, again, it's just a signature design that the shoe ultimately goes with. Of course, this material is very durable, it's very flexible, it's very great at absorbing the elements, and as you can see with 400 plus miles, like I don't have any rips or any shreds on the upper because of how well it's built. Let's talk shoe collar area plus tongue of the shoe and shoelaces. So this one, of course, now goes a little more asymmetric, and as you can tell by the tongue, this is the more of the design that Nike has been implementing since the Vaporfly and kind of the Zoomfly series shoes, and they've put it into this Pegasus, and I think it's just an overall great fit. I think a lot of people have been growing used to this particular shoe tongue design with asymmetric shoelaces, and I think it's a good play overall. So that's what's going on with this Peg 37. However, as we've discussed historically, this Peg 37, which I bought midsummer, late summer season, in my opinion, does not feel the same as the City Run edition. I believe this is like the white ultraviolet combination. I believe it was supposed to be the signature design for the Tokyo Olympics. I could be wrong on that front. If I've made a mistake, comment that below, please. But basically, the major difference between this particular Peg 37 and that particular Peg 37 is that this rubber, I think, is the traditional style rubber that is an option for this shoe, and it runs flat. It just doesn't feel nearly as awesome, nearly as gooey, nearly as flexible as the City Run Peg 37. And in turn, I just did not like running in this Peg 37 whatsoever. And I've made that clear in videos previously because I really had high hopes that I could take the Peg 37 into my fall training season, and it did not happen. It just was not cooperating whatsoever. I tried it on trail runs, I tried it on city runs. It was just feeling flat, and I wasn't having it with this particular shoe. Maybe I still need to keep raking it in, but again, I have a lot of shoe resources right now where like finding time to put this into a run might take some time. And considering that we got like a lot of new Nike shoes coming out, and I'm gonna go ahead and try them out as well, the Peg 37 might end up getting pushed farther back and back in my queue of shoes that I'm gonna be playing around with. So that's my take so far on the Peg 37s. Now, comparing and contrasting. So, first things first, let's talk purposes of the shoes. Yes, they are everyday trainers, designed for, in my opinion, both speed and both recovery, depending on how you play it out. I've had runs with the Infinity React that I was able to push like 6:30 a minute per mile pace plus in, without any major issues or any concerns with the weight of the shoe. In fact, I didn't even know the weight of the shoe when I was first pushing those paces. And I literally said on video that I would happily race in this shoe. And if they put a carbon plate in it and call it the Infinity and Beyond, I would not care. But they would just have to trademark it and give me royalties for it, because that would be such a sick name for it. But basically, overall with this shoe, it's been a great recovery shoe. It's just been great for like everyday easy runs, and I've never had major issues with it other than like maybe weather concerns, like if it was raining or if it was snowing at the time of my run. Like the Flyknit might absorb a little bit, it might kind of bleed through and you'd feel it on the sock. Not a big deal. That's your fault, not the shoe's fault, for you thinking, oh yeah, when it's raining I better run in a shoe that's very breathable and flexible. So that's kind of my thoughts on that front in terms of the Infinity React Flyknit. Now, as a PostLife kind of shoe, this is where I was talking about this earlier about how many girlfriends you can get. With PostLife, in regards to this shoe, walking around with this shoe is very fun. If you work somewhere where, like, I don't know, you're on a sales floor or you're like manufacturing or something, and you're standing for like 8 to 10 hours a day, this is a very well-designed shoe, and I don't say this very often. This is a very well-designed shoe for those types of activities because of how much foam, specifically React, and this overall design of the foam is on this shoe for basically day-to-day operations away from running. It's supposed to be just a very comfortable shoe that you can stand in, and it doesn't hurt, you know, your back, your knees, your glutes, just to stand in this particular shoe. And that's something I don't say about a whole lot of shoes. I've said that maybe previously about like Hoka One One shoes I've owned in the past, not necessarily in this vlog, but just like in passing with like people I've spoken to. If anything, I'll make links to those shoes in the video, but whatever. But overall, this has a PostLife that I think is very worthy of noting in regards to many running shoes that exist on the market. So again, everyday trainer that you can push to occasional tempo paces if you really want to, but should be intended more for like slower recovery days and overall just being your everyday trainer if possible. And then of course, when the Infinity React 2 comes out, I will definitely compare and contrast these particular shoes as they go. Now, Peg 37 in regards to that. Very similar things going on. Should be treated as your everyday trainer. Is it a recovery shoe? It could be, but instead of leaning more towards recovery, this shoe can lean more towards the tempo paces if you really try to get it in that direction, or you want to push that shoe into this particular sphere of running for yourself. I know there are shoes that are specifically designed for tempo running, like the Tempo Next Percent, but at the time that the shoe came out during the summer of like 2020, there weren't too many tempo designed shoes that weren't like race worthy, like a Vaporfly or an Alpha Fly. So you were able to use the Peg 37 in that sense, specifically with the City Run edition. This one, I think you still can if you figure out the situation with this air pocket. But that's the major issue, is if you want this to work as a tempo runner, you need that extra oomph from this air pocket to sustain your faster speeds. So it's not to say that you couldn't push like a 6-minute or a 5:40, 5:30 pace out of the shoe. It's just you're going to need that little extra assistance for that endurance moving forward in this particular pair. That's just my opinion, and based on what I've done this summer in regards to the old City Run version of the Peg 37, it's very possible to turn this into a tempo runner if you have the right foam and the right ability to activate this air pocket. So that's the major compare and contrast I would say of this shoe in regards to their specs and how I've used them. This is the bonus criteria, of course, is how many girlfriends you can get with both of these shoes. So in this particular pair, I've gotten one phone number and one girl to go out with me, which is pretty cool. I actually went on a run with that specific girl in this particular pair of shoes. And then, of course, this shoe just started to suck, and so did the girl, and it was just bad. Whatever. So now, with the Infinity Reactor on Flyknit, if you're iced out properly and, like, everything you're wearing is, like, solid, the drip is a 10 out of 10, and you just hang out with this particular shoe in pretty much any color scheme they got, including this one, it is my guess that you, the viewer, can probably get up to 3 phone numbers and maybe like 2 girlfriends out of this particular shoe. Whether it be like that in terms of you making them your girlfriend is one thing, but if you just want them around, I think you can definitely keep them around with this shoe. I'm not going to tell you how many phone numbers I got with this shoe because the number is kind of sad, because it was during the lockdowns, and like when everyone is locked down and not running, it's very hard to get phone numbers with sick running shoes. So that's kind of my sad point with this particular shoe. But however, with the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit 2, we're going to try this again. We're going to see how many phone numbers we can get, and I will keep you guys in the loop on how that's going. So that's my overall assessment on these particular 2 everyday trainers. Here's the $1 million, bazillion dollar question I guess you guys are asking. Which one should you buy? Well, let's put it this way. As everyday trainers, I would recommend some kind of combination between these particular shoes, these exact ones, like a City Run, Pegasus 37, and the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit. It's a very close call because the shoes weigh almost exactly the same. One is kind of leaning more towards like a faster tempo kind of stability run. One is more like for recovery every day, but they do have this middle ground of being everyday trainers. So that's kind of an eye of the beholder kind of approach, like whatever you think is more important. So if you're one of those runners who's looking just to have an everyday trainer and just try to push your speed on a day-to-day basis, maybe the Peg 37 is the right play for you. Just make sure you get the one with the gooey foam. Make sure the running place you are buying from understands this difference, because this is a legitimate option for the shoe that people do not discuss. And it is available on the Nike website to realize that these are options. So make sure the store you go to knows this. Now, the second piece here is if you are a runner and you're coming back maybe from an injury, or you've had case of like knee pains or sort of pains while you're running and you're trying to alleviate them, not talking necessarily shin splints, but we could analyze the Reactor Run Flyknit with shin splints. But if you are having some kind of pains and sorenesses while running and you're trying to continue running but mitigate those pains, maybe the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit was worth a try. Specifically because Nike believes that this shoe is meant to prevent injuries, and overall this React foam is very comfortable and it is designed to prevent that high impact that may be causing those particular injuries or sorenesses per se. So that's kind of my assessment. It's a crossroads kind of a thing, but they do meet in this middle point that if you're just looking for an everyday trainer, Both shoes are excellent. It's just depending on which direction you're trying to go from that point. Are you trying to go faster, or are you trying to sustain and recover? That's kind of your crossroads there. So that's all I've got for now in terms of this shoe. I will have a review comparing this to the Peg Turbo 2 moving forward, but again, that's for another time. As I said below, comment down below how many phone numbers you've gotten with both of these shoes. You think you got more numbers with the Peg 37 or the Infinity Reactor Run Flyknit? How many runners have looked at you and thought,
man, that guy is so cool,
with either one of these shoes? Like, which one gets you more eyes? Look in your direction, because shoes are everything, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe I'm just really on coffee, and I think that was like a really good question to ask for this video. If you made it to the end of the video, yeah, definitely leave that number down below. That's all I've got for now. So again, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys real soon.